All right, so you had some notes that looked almost identical to this before Christmas, but it was only sine, cosine, and tangent. And then we talked about the reciprocals a little bit before Christmas, but we got to make sure that we really have them down. And when we go through these, in order for us to remember where things are positive and negative, what's your little saying? All what? There you go. All students take calculus, and that's for sine, cosine, and tangent, but we're going to be doing secant, cosecant, and cotangent, but we're going to get to those through sine, cosine, and tangent. There's no reason to make up another one for the others because it would just make it confusing. So we're going to write some stuff on our notes that I wouldn't necessarily expect you to always write, but you have to think, and sometimes it's good to jot it down because sometimes if I don't, I'll forget what I thought, and then it's just a mess. So at least on your notes, probably a pretty good idea to have them written down. So we go with cosecant of 2 pi thirds. So the first thing I want to think is cosecant is the reciprocal of what? Sine, okay? And then 2 pi thirds is in which quadrant? Second, very good. And in the second quadrant is sine positive or negative? Positive. So all that stuff's important, and it's good to think about all that before you worry about the actual values. Because now I don't even care about 2 pi thirds, I can just think about pi thirds. So the sine of pi thirds is square root of 3 over 2, right? So this is going to be 2 over the square root of 3, but I can't leave it like that, right? So when I rationalize, I end up with 2 square roots of 3 over 3. But I don't want to have to go through that process every single time. So one of the things we did that last week before Christmas was, I think it was called the unit circle table, I think is what I called it, I don't know. But we wrote out all the values for all 6 trig functions because I want you to be able to just connect in your brain, because there's only a limited amount of numbers you have to actually know, that if you have square root of 3 over 2, its reciprocal is 2 square root of 3 over 3. And if you do enough practice, you'll just know what it is and you won't have to think through the rationalizing every single time. That's kind of your goal. It's not really memorizing, it's just really just knowing what's going to happen quickly. All right, secant. Secant is the reciprocal of cosine, and the 5 pi fourths is in which quadrant? Third, and in the third quadrant is cosine positive or negative? Negative, okay? Cosine of pi fourths, square root of 2 over 2. So that makes this 2 over the square root of 2, but then I have to rationalize, right? So that gives me 2 square roots of 2 over 2. Those 2's cancel out. My answer is supposed to be negative, so I just have negative square root of 2. You definitely don't want to have to think through that whole process every single time. The fact that you are now and you were on the other side of this, that's fine. This is still kind of fresh. But square root of 2 over 2, the reciprocal is the square root of 2. Square root of 3 over 3, the reciprocal is the square root of 3. And the reciprocal of the square root of 3 is square root of 3 over 3. It works both ways. It doesn't matter what it is. It just square root of 5 over 5 is square root of 5. Those are reciprocals. Okay, so cotangent, that is the reciprocal of tangent. 11 pi sixths is in which quadrant? 4. In the fourth quadrant, is tangent positive or negative? Negative. All right, and then the tangent of pi sixths is negative square root of 3 over 3. All right, and then, but I want the reciprocal of that, so that's just what? Square root of 3. Good, and it's negative. It's going to be the same as right here. So if I have square root of 3 over 3, that'll give me 3 over the square root of 3. So then when I rationalize and I multiply by the square root of 3 over the square root of 3, that gives me 3 square roots of 3 over 3. The 3's cancel out. That's where I get that from. Okay. And that's why that exact same thing will happen every single time. And the square roots, like I get something that's not a fraction on these two, but not this one, because these two numbers didn't match. When they match, you end up just with 1 instead. Okay. All right, good question. Anything else? All right, cosecant is the reciprocal of sine. Negative 2 pi thirds is in the third quadrant. Good. And in the third quadrant, sine is negative. The sine of pi thirds, square root of 3 over 2, right? The reciprocal of that, we know it's going to be negative. but that's this one right here, right? So the reciprocal of the square root of 3 over 2 is going to be 2 square root of 3 over 3. And if, you know, for a couple of times you need to do the rationalization or think through it, you'll see that quickly you'll either get really, really quick at it or you'll just automatically see what's going to happen and it'll come to you. It'll be fine. Okay? What questions you got? All right, good deal. Then let's look at our quadrantals. Starting with 0. So I have 0 here. We're going to do the cosecant of 0, the secant of 0, and the cotangent of 0. So cosecant, and this ordered pair right here, this is 1, 0. Make sure you get your x's and y's in the right place. So cosecant is the reciprocal of sine. The sine of 0 is 0. The reciprocal of 0 is undefined. Secant is the reciprocal of cosine. The cosine of 0 is 1. The reciprocal of 1 is 1. Cotangent is the reciprocal of tangent. The tangent of 0 is 0. The reciprocal of 0 is undefined. Okay. Everybody good with those? All right, so let's look at pi halves. So at pi halves, this ordered pair is 0, 1. And again, we're going to do cosecant, pi halves, secant, pi halves, cotangent, pi halves. There we go. The reciprocal of cosecant is sine. The sine of pi halves is 1, so the cosecant is 1. Secant is the reciprocal of cosine. Cosine of pi halves is 0, so secant is undefined. Cotangent is the reciprocal of tangent, and the tangent of pi halves is undefined, so the cotangent is 0. Okay. Any questions? All righty. Now we're at pi. So cosecant of pi, secant of pi, and cotangent of pi. So I get to cosecant through sine. The sine, oh, well, this ordered pair, let's do that. -1, 0. The sine of pi is 0, so the cosecant is undefined. I get to secant through cosine. The cosine of pi is -1, and that means the secant is -1. Cotangent, I get there through tangent. The tangent of pi is 0. And that makes the cotangent, well, I don't know if that came out of my mouth right. What I meant to say, I don't know what I said, but the tangent of pi is 0. That makes the cotangent undefined. Okay. I feel like I might have said some of that backwards and I didn't mean to. All right. And then last but not least, we have 3 pi halves. And this ordered pair is 0, -1. We're going to do cosecant, 3 pi halves, secant, 3 pi halves, and cotangent, 3 pi halves. You go ahead and do those 3. What's the cosecant? -1. What's the secant? Undefined. Good. And what's the cotangent? 0. Good. Any questions about any of those? Okay, so you see the steps you have to think through? If you can do sine, cosine, and tangent, you can do these. Just make sure you think through all the steps and you keep all the pieces together. All right, we're going to do a couple more together, and then I'm going to have you do some on your own. All right, so cosecant of 3 pi fourths. Cosecant is the reciprocal of sine. 3 pi fourths is in what quadrant? Second. And in the second quadrant, sine is positive. All right. The sine of pi fourths, square root of 2 over 2. So the cosecant is square root of 2, right? It looks like you're just getting rid of the denominator. That's not the rule for a reciprocal. That's mathematically what happens, but that's not like, you don't get to just lose the denominator. All right. Secant of pi. Well, secant is the reciprocal of cosine. Pi is not in a quadrant, it's a quadrantal, so you just have to think about it directly. The cosine of pi is -1, and the reciprocal of -1 is -1. Those are so easy. The reciprocal of 1, reciprocal of -1, they're the easiest ones. They're the ones I get the weirdest answers for because I think you feel like you got to do something weird. I don't know. All right, cotangent, reciprocal of tangent. -5 pi thirds is in which quadrant?
4. Oh, no,
First. This is very confident, but yes, but you caught yourself. Good. Those negative angles are tricky. And everything's positive in the first quadrant. The tangent of pi thirds is square root of 3, which means the cotangent is, you got it, square root of 3 over 3. Okay. Any questions at all? All right, you got 9 left. I'm going to give you about 5 minutes to do those. You can talk with the people at your table. You can do them together. That's fine with me. Talking means somebody's thinking, so they're not just copying things down. You're good. And I will be happy to clarify anything you can't get figured out together. when you do finish, go ahead and check with your neighbors before we talk about them. It takes some thinking, but sometimes it helps to talk through it with somebody. That's why I said you can talk to your neighbor. It's fine with me. All right, let's talk through these. Let's see. All right, Amy, can you tell me what you got for number 8? Oh, you know what? I'm going to give y'all another minute because I forgot again. I didn't fix it on the paper. I wanted to change. Well, we'll just leave it. I was going to change number 16 because I meant for it to be a reciprocal. It's fine. Yeah, it's a cosine. Okay, yeah, here, this is what I want you to do. If you already did it, it's fine. You're just going to redo it here. So let's change cosine to cosecant. I just wrote it down. I'm so sorry. Just mark it out. Well, there you go. Now you have to correct it. You're just going to do a whole new one. All right, so I'll give you a sec. I'll give you all a minute to do that. Oh, you don't? Oh. Well, good. Look at you. You could read my mind. Okay, we're ready to go through them. All right, so now, Amy, tell me what you got for number 8. Very good. Y'all agree with that? Okay, if you didn't get this and you're not sure why, somebody got whatever I say is the right answer, please let me know. I'll be happy to talk you through it. Okay, thank you, Amy. Next, she's not here. Michelle, what'd you get for number 9? 0. Very good. Well, I'll go with that one. Okay. Kayleen, what'd you get for number 10? Do we need to talk through it? Okay. So then tell me, Kayleen, what secant is the reciprocal of what? Cosine. Okay. So it's a reciprocal of cosine. Negative 5 pi 6, what quadrant is that in? Quadrant 3. Okay. It's in quadrant 3, and in quadrant 3 is cosine positive or negative? Yeah, all students take calculus. Okay, it's negative. All right. So then the cosine of pi 6 is what? Very good. But I want the reciprocal of that. So the reciprocal, I know it's going to be negative. What's the reciprocal of the square root of 3 over 2? You can write it down if you need to. You got it. So it's negative 2 square root of 3 over 3. So that whole process makes sense? Get through that? Okay, very good. Thank you. All right, so number 11, Sitlali, what'd you get? Negative square root of 2. Very good. Everybody okay with that one? Michelle, again, what'd you get for number 12? Very good. Then 13, Jeremiah, what'd you get? Undefined. Cotangent is the reciprocal of tangent, right? What's the tangent of pi halves up here? That's undefined. So this is 0. Very good. Okay. Just making sure I was paying attention, right? All right, number 14. Madeline, what'd you get for 14? Very good, thank you. 15. Hayden, what'd you get? Very good, thank you. And 16. Kayleen again, what'd you get? Very good. -2. All right, any questions at all? Okay, so it's a process, but the more you do it, the quicker you get at it and the better, just like with the rest of them that y'all have down great now. All right, awesome. Your assignment is in Delta Math. You got some time to work, so get after it.